Welcome to CTG Weekly with Mark and Andre, a weekly podcast where we talk about whatever we want to in games. This week, we revisit this year's Game Awards. Hi, Andre. The Game Awards happened. They happened last night. We're recording this the day after. And we're just going to give some reflection on our predictions and, also some reflections on the overall watching experience is what I'm bringing to the table because I have thoughts and feelings.
There's so much to talk about. So yeah, we can definitely measure up how we ended in relation to our predictions. Obviously, the production of the show and how it's become this weird behemoth of it's an Oscar, but also a trade show.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think I want to talk about categories getting shunted to sort of the ad space in between other awards and like which ones get to have speeches and which ones don't.
Yeah, maybe we talk about the format of this thing first.
Yeah.
Maybe we start there. Because, let me tell you what I was thinking as I was watching this. Whereas, the idea going into the Game Awards was how did our predictions line up with what actually happened? Pretty well. With some
really well.
pleasant surprises, I would actually say.
I think we're about 7 on 8 in our predictions, or 8 on 9. I can't remember exactly. We definitely failed, or I failed on the Game of the Year prediction, which you got. And I think everything else we pretty much lined up with what happened.
I think I Game of the Year I thought was going to go the other way, but I'm pleasantly surprised that it didn't. There were also a couple I made some predictions where I was like, when they actually came to fruition, I was like, this is wrong. This shouldn't have happened this way. But we'll get into that as well.
Sure.
Yeah, let's start with production format, the general thing that is the Game Awards, because award shows are always kind of bad. I think that's like a given. They're not going to be something that is good or pleasant to watch. They are always stilted and awkward. But the amount that this is exclusively a commercial is it blew my mind.
So if we cut up time and compare it to something like the Oscars, I think it might be useful for folks to get an idea. Maybe some folks watch the Game Awards but don't watch other kinds of awards shows, or vice versa. So a lot of this show is host time, which is Jeff Keighley, as always, because he's the founder of the show and he runs it. So there's a lot of that kind of hosting. Then there are people who come up on stage and they give away, they call out the names of the nominees and then they give away the award, which again, very commensurate with other awards shows. People give speeches sometimes, depending on when the award is given, and they get played off if they go for too long.
Or they attempt to be played off.
Yeah. And normally what you would have in something like the Oscars or the Golden Globes or the Emmys, you would have maybe an in memoriam, or you would have a tribute or a lifetime award, or you would have skits, right? That would be the filler time, because really this show went from about, the pre-show was 7:30 p.m. Eastern time to 8, and then it went from 8 to 11, which is about 75% of the time that it takes for a telecast of a film or a TV show award.
Yeah, I believe it went long. I think they were supposed to end at 10:30 our time.
Interesting. Yeah. And there are some musical performances as well, which I shouldn't forget. We got a Halsey and Diablo collaboration and a Hozier and God of War collaboration, I think.
Indeed.
And so the thing that the Game Awards has, which is very different from a lot of the other shows, is the amount of game reveals and ads that it has. So game reveals are really a thing that you get at games industry tech shows, not in an awards show, in other media at least. So the show has this weird thing of it's functioning like promotional material for the upcoming year, and it even has this strange award inside of its roster called Most Anticipated Game, right? So even inside the award structure of the show, there's this sort of like looking forward or priming next year
Yeah.
during this year. And then obviously the incredibly long plugs for commercials and apps. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to sign up for Grubhub based on the amount of times it was marketed to
I
me
love
last
me
night.
some grub. But
I
where
don't
better
know.
to get it than the hub of grub? You know, all the grub is there, man.
So the trailers part, and we can talk about this in a bit right after we're done with covering kind of the show's construction. I think is fine. That's kind of a signature of games shows, and it builds hype. I can imagine a version of the show that doesn't have that, and I can imagine a version of the show that is leaning more heavily on it. But I think what we should outline with this is that the function of the show is fundamentally different.
Yeah.
So something like the Oscars and the Emmys, because it's so looking back, and it really is about history and history of the medium, it's about tradition, it's about longevity, and the reason why the clips are there is to get people who haven't gotten access to that medium to go see it, right? It's
Yep.
to show them things that they haven't seen before, which this show also does, right? With having certain clips of the games in them.
Far less.
Less, for sure, less. And I would argue some categories do it very well, like best performance definitely does it well, and some categories don't. And we'll talk about which ones get to be on stage and which ones don't in a sec.
Mm-hmm.
The other function of this is it's a trade show, right? Which the other shows really aren't. And I think your enjoyment or evaluation of the show is going to vary based on what kind of show do you think it should be. I don't know. What do you think?
I think no one would watch if this wasn't a mini like E3 trailer bomb for the general public. I think no one would care. I think most people are watching to see what's next. Like they want to get on the hype train. This is where you get your ticket for the hype train. And I think gaming runs on that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you feel like film and TV culture is more star-centric, where game culture is more product-centric?
I mean,
Is
yeah,
that why
I think
we're
that's
stuck
fair.
in this?
I might I may need some more reflection on that, but definitely. I mean, you can definitely say that games are less star centric though, because if you look at the reception that oh my god, the Kratos gentleman.
Christopher Judge
of
Stargate fame.
Yes, of Stargate fame. I know you're a big Stargate guy. I was watching the live stream and taking a look at Reddit as well. I was deep in the chat as that was going on before I was like, I got to get out of this chat and just watch this. But like, people were like, get off, man. You're done. They don't care. Same thing with the crew of The Last of Us. They weren't really received super well, and the way they did their, I'm sure they were told to do this by producers, but the way they presented the award they were presenting, where they all like tried to talk in sync because there were people like representing the same characters in a different medium.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was brutal and did not go over well. And like these are the stars. Some of them were big stars, like Pedro Pascal. It's a big, really adored actor by the public, and even for him it's like, let's get this show on the road. We don't care, we're not here for this. Like your performance is not, like, I'm sure we like it as an audience, and I'm not speaking as me, I'm speaking as the general gaming audience here. I'm glad you're performing in the game, you're cool, nice job on Thrones, and I like him in Narcos as well, but
Yeah.
but show me Armored Core, baby. Like
Yeah.
that's where we're at here. And yeah, I mean, this is all product.
Maybe this is a good point to also, rekindle a discussion that you and I have been having for years off mic at this point, and I think sometimes on mic since we've started recording this, which is the infamous like games v movies dimensional debate, right?
Yeah,
The game movies
sure.
are art, our games are let's get as many actors as we can cram into our awards show to legitimize how
Hooah.
the awards show works. Yeah, so for people who may not have tuned in, the Best Performance Award, which was the first main show award, was presented by Al Pacino. And subsequent awards were also presented by Daniel Craig, Ryan Johnson, and Jessica Hennick from Glass Onion. There were trailers for the new Kojima game, which feature Norman Reedus and Leia Seydoux as well. So there were a lot of Hollywood people at this. Also, James Marden presenting the new gangster GTA
Michael
like
Madsen.
game. Michael Madsen.
So
So
that
sorry.
it's okay. We swapped knowing who is who. I like grimy Michael Madsen movies, and you like Stargate. So
It's true. So just like I felt like this year, more than any other year, really hammered that in. Like we used to get one or two, Skype interventions from like Christopher Nolan, but this felt just nonstop, like as much as they could cram in.
yeah, it was a lot. And
Do you
but
feel like it was
I
out of place, or does it?
no,
Do you
this
feel
is
like it's working for them?
yes, clearly. I think it's working. It's gonna keep happening. I think the reason the awards exist is because everyone is on board as like this is a giant commercial. Like
Right.
this is what makes it work, and industry folks are on board because it gives some recognition, but they're not even doing it for the recognition. They're doing it for the advertising. And I think the Oscars, by comparison, are about establishing prestige. I think a lot of this stuff vanishes the next year. Like, and I mean, of course, you can brand yourself as like a Game of the Year award winning to sell more copies. Even that, it's the advertising, and this works like I don't know with the Junos as well, and with the Oscars and any award show. If you win, you can leverage it to sell more of what you made, but I think there's like a fundamentally different reason where like this is really about the commercial space and the award part is so tertiary. And you can see that most with the number of really cool awards that are rapid fire awarded.
Yeah.
Like they
So
will
maybe
do like 4 or 5 back to back and then they'll go and now another world premiere.
so we should talk about this because this is a topic of contention in film awards shows as well. So for people who may have heard about this last year, there was a big scandal inside the Oscars award ceremony, which was that technical categories got shunted off of the telecast. So the way that shows tend to work is there's a pre-show where some of the awards are presented, and those tend to be like really technical, not easily understandable to the public awards. And then you'll get a mix usually of, shows go to increasing prestige. So they start off with things like costuming and makeup, which, there are some gendered aspects that we should be thinking about. And then they end with, best actor, best actress, best director, best film.
Yeah.
So the Game Awards also shuns things off of the telecast early on. So there were a couple of categories that were presented in that 7:30 to 8 o'clock docket. Most notably to me, mobile games, right? So Marvel Snap won, and Ben Brode came to pick up the award, and it still reinforces this idea that like mobile games are secondary, less prestigious, sort of crowding in on the games as art debate, which your mileage may vary on that take or that construction. And yeah, there are numerous categories that were compacted into these like 5 to 10 second rapid fire Jeff Keighley comments.
Yeah.
Not least of which was best art direction, which is like the number 4 award that they give. And, if we thought about it in terms of movies, would be equivalent to best cinematography or best editing.
Yeah.
Or some combination of both, right? It's not like a small award.
No.
And that my sense on that is instead of wanting to platform 10 of the best awards and they just can't fit any more into the telecast because of how the show is built. They want to jam in as much promotional material, and then only the biggest awards get to make it through. Right?
Yep.
Not a fan of that, personally.
Now, I was watching with roommates as well. We're going in and out, and they were like, "Are they just going through these?" Like, yeah, yes, they are, and it seems, it feels. I read it as like, I don't know, as an audience member, like a very disingenuous thing. Like it reads that way, but again, I don't think the general audience for this event really cares.
Yeah. I mean, I was on Twitter for most of it, so I was seeing a lot of folks that we know in the industry in Montreal, and some folks who were covering the event more thoroughly, like Paul Tassi at Forbes and Jason Schreier. And it really seemed to be like the trailers were the big thing that people were going to be like, this is going to feed my articles for the next couple of days. And you know, the most you get out of the awards themselves is like one writing piece, right? So if you're counting clicks, it's not what's going to be bringing food to the table, so to speak.
Oh yeah, especially not now. I do want to say, I really thoroughly believe that you are able to cut Crash Bandicoot coming down from the ceiling onto a Zoom call. And as much as the only kind of like award show banter skit I've ever really enjoyed was Animal at this one. So like at least they got that award. And it was going over super well with the crowd too, which there were some moments in here that did not land. Keegan-Michael Key, a professional person entertainer, came out there and it was crickets. It was brutal, and he is designed through a lifetime of experience to woo a crowd into laughter. Like,
is there a more emblematic division for 2022 than watching Key and Peele after years have Keegan-Michael Key at the Game Awards fumbling jokes about games, and having Jordan Peele talking about, you know, decennial contributions to the development of cinematography and day as night filming with Hoyte van Hoytema at like other awards. Like that should be an indicator of like how these shows treat the people that they're wanting to integrate and celebrate. And like,
well,
games
I think those two creators, Key and Peele, as they've gone their separate ways, are maybe into doing different things.
That's fair.
And
I
so,
just mean like movies are as much a business as games, but it really hits you in the face how much more business centric games are, or product centric.
Yeah.
Once again.
But
at least that's
the business casual centric, given how much was going around about game devs having no drip, as Courtney Blamey, frequent guest of our podcast, put it last night.
I don't think last night's show made things any better in that regard, for me at least.
No, listen,
I'm not a fan of Jeff Keighley's velour suit.
No, I'm all about what Animal was repping, honestly. Bring that to the party. I do love Muppets though, but
you're good with Animal for life.
I have never been curled up in like the fetal position more than in any of these forced banter like skits that they did, and I'm like, just do another world premiere video for these, because you are producing such a strong negative affect in my body, and like I'm not sure who any of these things are for.
That's fair.
Like even kids, I can't see that Crash Bandicoot skit going over with young folks either.
I can't imagine that there's like a large audience of young children watching this. Like we don't have that sort of parent to child, like we must celebrate games multi-generationally thing as a part of the monoculture yet, in the way that like the Oscars were something you watched with family in the 90s.
Oh no,
like,
kids definitely watch this. It's just not as a family, right? It's like they're watching by themselves. Dude, based on what happened at the end of this, I wouldn't be surprised if there are some kids running this place, especially in the security department.
Maybe maybe we wrap. This is like our last sort of point on the telecast side of things, which is like I I really don't know what to say about the prankster who took the scene at the end of the show. I mean, if people are listening to this and haven't seen it, I'm pretty sure you can just Google like Game Awards 2022 prank and you'll find it immediately. I'm seeing a lot of news coming out about this today from people like Jason Schreier, so I don't feel qualified to litigate this, but I'm shocked that that happened at such a large scale industry event and like nobody caught it. Like every security line failed.
Okay, but you say this, but for me, like I study the gaming culture. It's what I do. It's where I live, and I live in the meme and the toxic sphere. Like I search that space out, right? For listeners who don't know, it's what I do. I live in games. I search out the toxicity, and I'm like, what the hell is happening here? That this happened is just emblematic. It's the perfect encapsulation of what's happening in every game all the time that has multiplayer connective elements. It's like, oh, well, we kind of just thought everyone would go along with what this is supposed to be and be chill. And the structure failed and didn't do what it was supposed to do. And we're just like, all right, that happened. I guess let's ban this person, aka arrest him.
So now the Game Awards have had their Moonlight La La Land moment of a different nature. And I guess we're going to get to talk about this for the next couple of years every time somebody walks up to the stage in a slightly questionable fashion.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, this is games. This is exactly what should have happened. Like, it's not good that it did, but like, if you follow the logic of like, this is the cultural space that we've made, of course this is what goes down. Of course it is.
Yeah, I mean, the cultural part is predictable. I'm just like thinking about the show organization. I'm like, I just don't understand. Because like the Game Awards is not a new event, right? I think the first one goes back to 2006 with the Spike Awards, and like Jeff Keighley hosts E3 and Gamescom. It poses some interesting like infrastructural questions for the show that like might not be interesting to listeners, but that a child was able to do this is worrying enough in terms of what kind of security is provided to other people who attend these events.
Yeah.
I
completely unsurprising. Man, we play fast and loose with people. Again, it's all product, baby. And someone just thought this was a kid on the From Software team, I guess.
I saw people commenting, like industry folks that we know, commenting that was it the interpreter? Was it a translator? Was it somebody part of the entourage? Like no one knew, and none of the folks who went on stage are policing this, right? They're just super high on adrenaline, happy to accept an award, which we can talk about in a second.
Yeah, and it's just what is possibly turning out to be some super problematic kid.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know where this is gonna go, but if this goes where I anticipate it going, it's nowhere good, and it is completely predictable.
Right. Oh yeah.
What else is predictable? The awards themselves.
Well, so do you want to start with the king first and then work our way down a little bit?
Yeah. So I mean, God of War Ragnarok is in to some degree the king of this. Early on in the show, it definitely looked like God of War was going to start sweeping all its categories.
100%. I was convinced about halfway through the telecast that we were going to see like a top-down sweep, and it's actually a bit more measured than it looks. So in terms of wins, God of War is at the top with 6 wins. Elden Ring is number 2 with 4 wins. And then Final Fantasy 14 and Stray are tied for third place with 2 wins each.
Yeah.
Um, pleasantly surprised by Final Fantasy's recognition, honestly.
Yeah.
And
second year in a row for
yeah,
those. Yeah.
just a lot of the show just felt like kind of a love letter to Naoki Yoshida and like the Final Fantasy 14 crew, like really recognizing them as sort of doing something different in the online space.
Yeah, which, as a
So-
counterpoint to the thing that I was just talking about, I'm so glad that it is actually getting recognized for this, because like what they do is
Yeah.
really important. And I think Western devs are a bit reluctant to pull from the Japanese side of things, especially when we're talking about like online games, because Japan seems like it's, much less invested in online connectivity.
So for folks listening to this, right, Final Fantasy won 2 awards:
Yeah.
Best Ongoing Game and Best Community Support, both of which I think are fully deserved.
Yeah, for sure.
And kind of difficult to argue with, especially like in the categories that they're in.
Yeah, and this game among multiplayer games, among MMOs, is like unnotorious. It is known for having a pretty welcoming and far more positive community than other games in this sphere, and that it's recognized, I think, is really important. And I don't know, hopefully devs start paying attention to what they do, not just in the systems of the game, but the way the developers interacts with the players, the way it views their player base, I think is a really healthy way to start looking at players, and is perhaps not in the spirit of what we just talked about the way this award show is fully constructed and where it sits within game culture. But that this is being recognized, and is being recognized for 2 years running, like, that's a good sign. Take note of this.
Yeah.
And I think let's embrace some of what they do.
So thinking about how the awards split up at the top, right? So we got Final Fantasy with 2 and Stray with 2, and Stray, I think, conformed to our predictions. So it won Best Independent Game and Best Debut Indie Game, both of which seemed like foregone conclusions to me. There was some discussion between us last time whether Cult of the Lamb would win. I can't remember which way we cut, but
Stray.
Still fantastic.
Yeah.
And then, so God of War and Elden Ring. And so maybe we should just name them really quickly. So God of War walked away with Best Score and Music, Best Audio Design, Best Narrative, and Best Performance and Accessibility, which I think we talked about last time.
Yep.
That was one of the strongest points of the game. And also in previous weeks, I think in the 2 weeks prior, we talked about like the accessibility options and all of this. And so God of War walks away with sort of a profile of prizes that really seem to be like Christopher Judge and every other aspect of the game that is not the core part of the game.
Yeah.
Right. So it walked away with action adventure, which sure, that is like the best one. But it didn't walk away with direction or game of the year. It walked away with prizes for writing, prizes for music, prizes for performance, for audio editing, all aspects that I think we agreed with walking in.
Yeah.
And Elden Ring sort of ate its lunch on the other end of things. Best art direction, best game direction, game of the year, and best role-playing game, which we figured was going to be the split between action adventure and role-playing, was going to be the two of them splitting the prize. So sort of recognizing Elden Ring cohesively as the more award-worthy of the two.
Which it is.
Right. So yeah, I was going to ask, do you feel like this split is fair? Do you think like God of War should have gotten more or less?
Listen, the further I get away from God of War, the less I like the game. Like after finishing it, there's a lot that didn't work for me, and Elden Ring I'm going to carry with me forever as like a wow, this was a special thing to have played. There's actually not that I think God of War is terrible and didn't deserve these awards. I think it really did do some incredible things, but as far as like a personal rating of it, I will never
Yeah.
revisit that game. And I will probably now never revisit the first one because I just don't like where it goes. I'll the way most people felt about like the Game of Thrones ending, wrecking the rest of the series. I kind of have
Sure.
this with the most recent God of War. Not that it's ruined, right? Like it was fine. The experience was fine, but like it's not like a
If
movie I'm going to put on every couple years and really be invested in, which is what they're trying to make. And I wish it was replayable in that way, but no.
if a third one comes out, which it probably
Yeah, I'll
will
play it.
you give it a
Of
chance?
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not beyond giving something a chance, right? Like
So yeah, there's still a world where
goodness.
like the third game lands the combat the way that the first one
Yeah, it's
did,
true.
or
Yeah,
in
for sure.
parts that we thought the Atreus components worked much better, and
Yeah.
like if that's the focus going forward, then
But as far as
who
what this
knows?
did right now, no way. And then so I last week, I just want to talk about score soundtrack here.
Mm-hmm.
Last week I said that they should give this to Bear McCreary, not for this game, but for
For the previous
but
one.
no, but for his work on the theme song of the show Black Sails.
Mm-hmm.
Uh and I was kind of, being I thought his work on this game was fine. Elden Ring score is superior. It is substantially better and so woven into the moments of Elden Ring. I cannot I don't remember any music from God of War Ragnarok, but
The main theme I
every
think is
every
sticks.
every sound cue for every boss fight in Elden Ring like is so iconic.
It's interesting because your ear is so much more developed than mine for music. Like it is the part of my vault like brain that like everything just falls through the cracks. And I can't really remember any Elden Ring music, but the God of War theme, like the main theme, stays with me. And so I'm wondering if that's part of what happens with this, where like a lot of people just aren't like they aren't composers or people who are musicians reviewing this, and they're like, I remember the theme. Because the theme is very amenable to the way that themes are designed in film as well, right? You can remember like you lose 90% of a John Williams score, but you remember, March of the
Well,
Empire,
it's
and
a
that's like the
motif
thing.
based thing. Like the way
Yeah.
the game is composed is you have like he even said it in his speech where like I made these three notes and you build everything out of that. So everything follows on the same sonic pattern. And so it's really easy to get that looped in your mind. Elden Ring, I think it's more based on a palette than it is a motif with the choirs and really angry brass and strings.
Yeah.
And so you're not playing with the same notes, and so you're going to have them stick in your head a bit less because it's not like a jingle. God of War Ragnarok is a jingle redone a la Top Chef three ways, but like
Mm.
300 ways over the course of the game. And Elden Ring is like, this is a palette, and what we're conveying to you is degrees of intensity and abnormal humanness in the degree of I don't know pressure on the strings, of force in the notes, of aggression in the choir that's in the back, and the way that fully encapsulates the odd familiarity of the Elden Ring world. It's
Mm.
it's creating something familiar and yet completely alien in the sonic palette for the game. That is like it makes the whole thing, and you don't have to remember the notes, but what you have to take with you is like the feeling of all those incredible bosses when that music swells up and just kind of takes you into that really it's a space that only Elden Ring made ever. Like
Right.
well some of the other Soulsborns have also done this, but I think Elden Ring really like brings it all together. And like I the God of War Ragnarok soundtrack is fine. I don't think it's as incredible a thing. But it is more filmic, right? It's way
I think
more like this is how you would score a film with a motif,
it's
and you
easy.
rework the motif
Yeah.
multiple
It's
ways.
it's
Yeah.
it's easy for people to wrap their head around it in a way that I think some of the other contenders in this list are more difficult. Elden Ring certainly, and I think this is one where I think we had missed. I think we missed the mark because I think when we called it for Metal Hellsinger,
Yeah,
which was
I
like a game
yes.
that like
Yeah.
literally just didn't function without
Yeah.
the
Well,
soundtrack,
it
and
it
that was its
it
thing.
was a should this maybe win because of the entire premise, but I don't think we actually thought it would.
Mm. So overall, I think we're both fairly happy with how the awards went. Honestly, for folks who are listening to this, I was sending messages to Mark prior because he was telling me that folks on forums and the subreddits were convinced Elden Ring was going to win, and I really wasn't in on it because I looked at the past Game Awards and it really seemed like a situation of always running up, like always the bridesmaid, never the bride, where consistently Dark Souls, Bloodborne had been sort of shunted to the side by other games.
Yeah.
I even think Dark Souls 3 lost to Witcher 3 DLC, not even the main game. And Sekiro had won, right? And that was sort of the
Yeah.
canary in the coal mine of like, would this follow on Sekiro's lead, which was, I think, a much more linear game, or would it be too complex, obtuse, unapproachable for some folks to vote
Yeah.
positively on it? And apparently not. So that's wonderful.
I
There is
do.
a thing.
Okay, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. Oh.
We'll do you and then we'll do me.
So I mean, because I'm going on a bit of a different tangent. I want to talk about another game that is always the bridesmaid and never the bride.
Okay, let's do that.
Um, so I mean, God of War and Elden Ring were number one and number two with 11 and 8 nominations apiece, which means they did average about a 50%, nomination to close win
Yeah.
rate. Stray from 7 nominations to 2, but there was another game that had 7 nominations that we talked about last week, and I mused that it was going to be another situation where this game was going to get completely shut out of every award because it just launched in a strong year and it's not as amenable to the awards. Horizon Forbidden West. 7 nominations, no wins. Kind of a, heartbreak for the folks at Guerrilla.
Yeah, I really think that's probably a bummer if you made that game.
Like twice in a row, you go to two different awards and you're like, this game's amazing. Everyone's in. There are some reviews that are critiquing the cultural sensitivity of the game, but overall, like a very well received product and something I consider a AAA game with an enormous amount of polish and like really good game length.
Conceptually, it's really cool too.
Just like completely 0 out of 7. So, tough night for Guerrilla Games, and I hope it doesn't dissuade them from making other games like this. I don't know. I imagine that the Game Awards aren't the thing that is like
No, it's the money.
their main motivation. Yeah. So, um,
hopefully
bummer,
people bought it.
Yeah. Hopefully it showed up in enough trailers that people were like, "Wow, this looks like pretty cool. Maybe I'll pick this up now." And especially as we're nearing the holidays and we're getting closer to sales and stuff like that, I imagine that some people will pick it up. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have two things. Yes, the first thing is that I did want to say one of the things we remarked on in our informal watch party over here was there are a few games in those trailers from this year that just looked like the same game, and I'm sure this happens every year, but I think it's worth restating. There was even a couple games where you're in like this central hub area and there's like a hand-shaped statue in the snow that appeared multiple times across multiple titles, and I was like, is this year's trope? Is this the Hans Zimmer Bois of 2023 gaming? Like, holy hell. And then Ice and Fire colliding was just this year was defined by that, so much so that by the time Armored Core 6 was announced, I was just like, I'm buying this. I don't even care. It's been a decade since an Armored Core game. I loved Armored Core as a kid. And it was robots and not fire and snow. And
I'm in.
And I'm fully there. Also, the new Final
I'm so
Fantasy
in.
looks absolutely bonkers, but I am also 1,000% in. Also, kind of looks like a lot of the other games that were shown off this year.
I
But
I do feel like it is the most Dark Souls of all of the Final Fantasies we've seen, but also Devil May Cry, and I'm kind of in for both. So
yeah, it looks neat. The combat actually looks a lot like the previous Final Fantasy, though. Like I noticed that a little
yeah,
bit in
well,
the thing, which was fine.
I
It
think
was fun.
I think they've been moving towards that kind of stuff more. My understanding is that this game is fully an action game, and it's not an ATB or time based game at all.
Yeah.
Like it's going. The combat designer is the Devil May Cry 5 combat designer.
Bring back my flying car. All right. The last thing I really want to talk about in regards to this award is this. It is the Player's Voice Award, the winner of
Oh.
which was Genshin Impact, to which I would like to say to all the players out there, who hurt you?
Yeah.
Why are you voting for this game?
I think I texted you some very like I don't understand. Like I think I had the exact same reaction as like the People's Choice Award at the Oscars being like the Flash entering the Speed Force in a DC movie where I'm like, why is this winning? Um I I just don't understand. I mean, get players voice had Genshin Impact, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Sonic Frontiers and Stray. I can understand Sonic Frontiers and Stray not even making the top, but how? How does I I do guess that both of us are very in on the not loot box monetization that Genshin runs on. Like I think we are, pretty outspoken critics of that business model, and so this game is like anathema to us
Like,
no matter
listen,
what kind of representation it has.
if you love Genshin Impact, I'm happy that you have a game where you're finding joy in your life. I also really encourage you to check your bank statements and your credit card statements, and
Yep.
really keep an eye on things and think a little bit about what you're voting for here.
Yeah.
I'm worried for you players. Like,
I just don't even know where to start. Like I spend most of my days talking with people who talk to regulators about how this game is the devil for multiple different countries with different value sets and different cultures, and everyone is like laser focused on this being a game that needs to get hammered down in terms of how it exploits players. And so the game itself, I think, is fine, like the game mechanics and everything, but I can't in good conscience, like,
yeah, and I just want to be clear here that like I don't have an issue with like the actual gameplay of Genshin Impact or anything, or the aesthetic. It's a very beautiful looking game. Um, my issue is that it is a game that is thoroughly designed to extract quite a
yeah,
bit of money from its players, and players have taken this on using their voice as like, this wins
yeah.
for us. This is the Players Voice Award. It's like, I don't know, it feels like an acknowledgement that like, yeah, this is completely fine. Keep doing this. We don't mind.
Yeah. Uh, The equivalent case for me would be if, the next God of War released and it cost $20,000. What what would I think of it? I would think it was a terrible product to sell to people. Most people would not be able to access it in a way that would be ethical. Anyways, it's a whole other discussion. I don't want to
Completely.
burden people. On a positive note, and maybe this is our closer. Are there trailers or game announcements that you thought particularly hit it out of the park, or changed your opinion about something coming out, or even were completely incomprehensible and like noteworthy for you?
Um, so I
No
mean,
number limit,
I
just a
I don't
couple.
think trailers really change my opinion. Once I know about a thing, I'm like, this is
Hmm.
I'm either in or out. I mean, a trailer's a trailer. Hardly any of these show gameplay, and so not.
Not
No, I mean,
particularly.
Hades 2 looks cool. Probably still can't play it because of the way the camera moves and the particle effects in that game,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
the amount of messages I've gotten by DM in the last 12 hours is kind of unreal.
I mean, it looks fantastic, and
Yeah.
I would love to love Hades. I don't not love Hades. I just can't play it because of photosensitivity issues.
Yeah.
Um,
Big bummer.
but it looks great. I mean, the game looks cool. I mean, Diablo 4. I'm here for that. Blizzard cinematics are
Wasn't
always rad.
Yeah, wasn't in for the musical performance as much, but the trailer definitely.
Yeah, musical
I
performance was. Again, I don't like music performances at award shows. I just think it's not what
Yeah.
we're there for, and so they don't go
So
over super well. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna do three, and one of these is sort of an invitation to you to keep track of my mental state for the next 12 months.
Yeah. Anthem
So in
2.
terms,
No.
well, you say that, but maybe I'll start with that. Yeah, it's what could be considered Anthem 2, which is Immortals of Avium, which is the next EA game that was announced by Ascendant Studios, and it looks kind of like if Destiny, Call of Duty, Dead Space, which a lot of the folks who worked on Call of Duty and Dead Space actually work in the studio, produced a first-person magic shooter. There's a high chance that this is catnip to me once the gameplay releases.
There's a high chance I went to the bathroom while this aired because I do not remember this at all.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Gina Torres is voicing, which brings in the Destiny, nostalgia as well.
Listen,
That's
if
like
it
my
looks great, I'll
please
play
help
it.
me.
I'm on
Yeah.
board. If it looks like it's shaping up to be an Anthem, I'll pull you away from the cliff.
Yeah. In terms of a cautious plus, is a game that I've been keeping an eye on for a couple of years, and I am really curious to see what happens. This is this I think they revealed this like pretty late in the show, called Blue Protocol, which is a Bandai Namco MMO.
Yes,
basically really looks like if a Tales game was an open world, and it's been in production for a long time. There's been some technical alphas that seem to get really positive responses from the game. So we don't get a lot of Japanese made MMOs often, and I really welcome a new contender on the scene, especially if the monetization's not super predatory.
That's always the question for me. Is this looks so much like Genshin to me, like as a not deep into the Genshin verse, that I was like,
yeah,
this is immediately suspect as like.
From what I've seen in terms of how the gameplay works and been keeping a track of, it's actually much closer to either .hack or World of Warcraft in terms of its internal function.
Well, we'll see. But
so
I mean,
it's all in the
as
money,
of now,
I
it looks
guess.
cool. I'm there for it.
And the one trailer that I'm preparing myself for having to deal professionally with another 2 years of Kojima discourse because of the Death Stranding trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ready for octopi and babies in liquid containers, and I'm gonna have to deal with it, I think, because people are into it. And Kojima, I think, is settling into sort of a Guillermo del Toro position for games, like sort of like this is the freaky guy at the awards, does a lot of like horror based stuff, and he's essential to the artistic ecosystem of the games. He's not a problematic person as far as I know, not recently anyways.
I have no idea about that. I do know, well, anytime I've seen a Kojima trailer, it does nothing. It fills me with literally no feelings. I'm not even negative ones. I'm just like, all right, you did stuff.
I know so many people who are just like diehard fans of Death Stranding 1 and will debate me for having the opinion that it also did nothing for me, or I didn't feel the need. Like, aesthetically it's amazing, and I actually think I would respond more to it if it was a film or a limited series, because that part of it looks fantastic.
Yeah. But
the gameplay really just does not excite me in any way whatsoever. So
and listen,
embracing myself.
If you are a huge Kojima person, Like, if you are a fan of this gentleman's products, you are fully within your rights to reach out to us and get on here and talk to us about why it's amazing, because it's not like we have anything against him. It's just really his games for us have not done anything.
Listen, given how long these things Kojima games take to make, we're not going to be talking about this game until like 2020 anyway.
2070.
Yeah, 20,270.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I guess that's my final endpoint on the Game Awards. So, they succeeded at being Game Awards. They got crashed by a 15-year-old.
yeah. They succeeded too well at being
Uh,
Game Awards.
They're fantastic promotional time for companies that really want to sell ads on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
And provided some neat trailers. Looking forward to Lightfall. Looking forward to Tekken 8. Looking forward to Street Fighter.
Oh, Street Fighter. Let's
But
go.
those games, I much like you, I was already in on them, so I'm just like happy to get more
That's
info.
right.
But
Like, I'm mainly already in on stuff. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me there was Armored Core. Of like,
yeah,
let's have a new Armored Core and see what they do with it 10 years after.
yeah, that was a kind of like, oh wow, I didn't expect this. And even in Jeff Keighley's very measured delivery of most segments, he kind of broke, like his voice kind of cracked when he was talking about it, which like there are some aspects of, I think, the show which are less commercial and very genuine about love of the craft.
Oh no, love of games. No, totally. Yeah. Like there's a whole thing with like the artifice of this is like it doesn't mean you don't love the thing either, but you are putting on this event and it has its form, and you cohere what you're making to the form that is expected, and it becomes stilted and weird, but the love is there. The whole thing is done out of love and profit, but you got to profit these days, else you don't get to do anything.
Can I have a PS moment for like the show to just be like, I can't believe that this has happened, or like I can't believe that this game is actually getting made?
Yeah, of course.
So the game that we talked about that had Michael Madsen, Crime Boss Rocket City. I want to be in the negotiating room that developed over multiple contract signings, where at the end somebody was like, yes, Michael Madsen, Danny Glover, Kim Basinger, Vanilla Ice, Danny Trejo, and Michael Rooker are in this.
I don't know who this is for.
Saints Row people?
Even?
That's my guess.
Are you sure? This doesn't look like that. This looks like an 80s like cop crime.
People who really love GTA Vice City. Maybe.
Yeah, people who love Vice, who played Vice City. People who played Vice City when it came out were me when I was a kid. That was the GTA when I was of that age to play a GTA game, and this isn't for me. I even like a decent chunk of Michael Madsen's body of work, but he is not like a beloved actor. He's a niche Tarantino comeback guy.
I was going to say, I think this is going to appeal to folks who are just like all in on the Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez train, but not from like a cinema standpoint, like cinema theorists, more from like I love crime movies, or like, wasn't it so badass when Samuel L. Jackson asked about the burgers in Pulp Fiction, like that kind of fan. I don't know. If you're a fan of this game and you're really looking forward to it, again, welcome to come on and tell us why Crime Boss Rocket City is going to be like game of the year when it comes out, because I'm
open to anything. I just like I don't see it. I was watching that trailer and like my much younger roommate was watching that trailer and was like, one, who are these people? And then he went, oh, Vanilla Ice. So I think that says something about what the cultural imprint of this is shaping up to be.
Is it for people who just really love Lethal Weapon? I don't know.
That's me, and this was not for me.
I don't know what to tell you. It's gonna be puzzling. I guess we're gonna see when the game comes out and what the reception is to it.
Yeah, I don't
And
know.
when it recedes into anonymity after disappointing sales figures.
So strange. Oh, I have one PS for this award show as well before we end. There was a moment when near the end of the broadcast where the camera clearly ran into something or someone. And if this was you, I hope you're okay.
Deal.
All right. That's it for the pod this week. We did the Game Awards. What do we do next week? Do we know?
I don't think we planned yet.
It's a holiday season.
Maybe we do a gift guide, gift recommendations.
Yeah, we could
based
do
on
gift
game
recommendations. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds
It's a
lovely.
bit late, but everybody's going to be running around last week before Christmas.
It's true. Yeah, if you have a young child at home, you could consider Genshin Impact. It won the Player's Voice Award.
Just protect your credit card if you do that.
All right. For Mark and Andre, who am I, and the other person here, that's it for this week. We'll see you next time on CTG Weekly. Bye-bye.
Bye.